Okay, we're back talking about Troll. And man, Troll has done some funny things. Since the last video, it moved up off the lows right here and pretty much just blew. It just blew. So many great things have happened for it. And I am not in position. It is what it is. This thing has moved up about 100% already in just a week. So fantastic performance. Unfortunately, it front ran my level, and I couldn't get in. So there's a lot to talk about here. A lot of psychology that we can discuss. Uh, the future trade setups. How else we can observe the structure as well as profit taking and that sort of thing. So I'm gonna get into it bit by bit. Uh, First thing I want to start off with is the idea of FOMO. And when you're in a position like the one I'm in, it can be very easy to look at all this hype that's coming around Troll right now. As you may know, Troll got listed on Coinbase and they've begun auctioning it. Could have been today, maybe yesterday. And so, yeah, there's a lot of hype right now. And it can be very easy to look at that and go, oh my God, it's amazing. I have to be in it. And, you end up buying tops by doing that. And that's not to say that this is a top, but it very well could be as prices coming up on resistance. So this project, it really covers all of the things that I'd like to see in something that is worth taking along at. It's got a great technical structure, consistent higher lows, and based on the data that we looked at in the previous video, there's having a low market cap and having a low follower count on X, it makes it a more compelling meme coin to trade versus its predecessors and its competition, let's say. And so I am very interested in taking a stab at this, but I am not going to FOMO. I can't do it. So it's not within me to enter at anything that isn't the absolute bottom or the absolute top when it comes to longing and shorting. So, and that's because the way I trade is just like that. I like to trade these very tight setups so I can have like things like this where it's a 35 risk to reward. That's how I like to play. And so I'm not just going to get in just because I see a few green candles, right? My candles aren't green, but I'm sure they're green on yours. So to continue, I want to get into a little bit about how people structure their setups, right? Because I structure mine in a different way than most people. Typical people that invest in meme coins will do something like this that I just spoke of, where they see this euphoria and they're starting to get an idea of like, oh man, well, we're only at a 160 million market cap. Yeah, maybe it goes up to 200 million. Maybe it goes up to a billion, or even 2 billion, 3 billion, because that's so small, right? That's a drop of water in the entire $4 trillion crypto market cap. So they just load up on positions. They throw a few $1,000 at it, and just when they experience downturns, they either sell early or they just hold it to zero, right? Most meme coins go down about 90 something percent. They pretty much die, the grand majority of them. And so a lot of people end up round tripping their trades. And there's many reasons for this. One of them in particular is that people get married to the coin. So they think, well, Troll is so amazing just because of those things that I mentioned that make it a compelling trade. People will sit there and they'll keep the money in because they think, they come up with these exorbitant profit targets, and it can be quite dangerous. So the way I like to trade instead is to be structured, right? And I do so to avoid round tripping my trades, right? Because that is what's going to happen, right? When you have this kind of idea where you're like, okay, this thing just moved, how much was this? 2,000, 2,500%. If you want to really take it off the low all the way down here, about 3,000%. You're like, oh, 3,000%. That was awesome. It only did that in a week or a month. That's it. 30 days is what it took. So if you're looking at this as a bottom as well, and you're going, oh, wow, so another 3,000%, that puts us at 4 billion, 3 billion. And what if, like, the Fed's cutting liquidity and the Fed's cutting rates, and maybe they're going to start pumping liquidity into the market and that sort of thing. We're at the end of the 4-year cycle, so crypto's going to have, Bitcoin's going to have this parabolic move to the upside. So people start coming up with crazy targets, like, hey, maybe it goes up 100x, maybe 20x, 30, 40, 50, all the way up to a damn $1 trillion, right? I don't think anybody's calling for that, but who knows? That's how it is. And so people round trip their trades quite often because price, maybe it just stalls right here, right at 1 billion, and then it just comes down and drops 90% like every other meme coin. Or, shoot me in the foot, maybe it goes crazy. We don't know that. So I like to structure my trades in a way that wins, right? And my system has been winning for me. So I'm going to continue doing it the way that I've learned how to do it, through experience, through time and pain. So the way that I plan on doing it is as follows. There's a few setups in mind. As I mentioned, the price is coming up on resistance. There's good potential that this is an absolute bottom, but I'm not convinced. So let's get into the potential scenarios, right? This is a very clean impulse. It looks beautiful. I'm going to mute that. Please excuse me for just a moment. I'm going to there you go. So this is a very clean impulsive structure, right? Big old 1, 2, very shallow, right? Very shallow wave 2. And then we have this 3, 4, 5. And the wave 4 appears to be a sharp A, B, C, or WXY correction. So it looks pretty solid. This could be completed. And so the way that I'm going to trade this is assuming 2 different scenarios. One where it is completed and I'm just going to catch a pullback. And the other scenario is one where it's not completed and we actually get this much deeper correction down to the targets that I had initially illustrated. And so this is another thing that's important, is to pay attention to what the chart's doing, right? Because my previous setup was all the way down here. And another thing that traders do is that they'll get caught up in the fact that this is their setup. This is what I want to see. There's so much confluence. It makes sense. But you fail to pay attention to what the chart's doing. And the chart's clearly impulsing off of a low. It's breaking resistance. It's breaking through this trending structure, and so it's bullish, right? So we got to look for setups to capitalize on that, at least if you want to be a part of the game, right? So I have other scenarios in mind for catching longs on the way up, but let me talk about the LE waves. We have this idea of the most bullish scenarios, right? With my profit targets at a very conservative 800 million market cap. It's about 80 cents. And that's assuming price rejects at all technical resistance levels, that have a confluence at this range here. It's anywhere within this range is pretty solid to start taking massive profits. Perhaps, a bounce off this trend line right here is like the first thing you should do, or right here. But we'll get into like profit targets, taking profits later. The point is that this is the structure I'm looking for, and we have this impulse off the lows that seems to be finishing up here. Seems to be wrapping up quite a bit. It just to me it looks like a leading diagonal. There's a lot of corrective overlaps in the structure here, so I'm labeling it as this leading diagonal with an ending diagonal at the end right here. And I don't seem to have it marked out. Well, that's fine. Either way, this guy right here is starting to come up to resistance, and so at any point price can stall within this box here. when that happens, we look for a retracement, either a retracement long setup, which could be right here, or it could be after sweeping the low right there. Those are all, you could find your golden fib targets somewhere around there. There's not enough data, unfortunately, for us to come up with that, right? Maybe the top's in right here. And if that's the case, then, you know, you can start structuring long setups accordingly. Something like that sort of thing. You see, very high risk to reward of 20 plus. So that's idea number one, right? I have just this very standard setup right here, the same one. I could take a scalp off of this, and I probably will, just in case, because this can get bullish very fast, especially if Bitcoin is bottomed here, because Bitcoin's coming up on support as well, and if the structure is to align with a bullish scenario like I have outlined here, then we're going into this this very impulsive wave 3, which can take us to 140, 150 plus, and at that point, yeah, trolls are going to go bananas as well. So taking intermediary long setups like this is not a bad idea, and I'll probably end up scalping myself into a few of those with lower risk just to get exposure to the move. But I do want to talk about the other scenario, because despite missing my setup, it's still not out of question just yet, because there is an alternative count that I have here for a triple correction, because there is a lot of corrective overlap, and I made a little mistake there, but point is that it could be completed right up there. So at any point when price, if it rejects strongly enough from this area, coinciding with the bearish scenarios on Bitcoin, you know, I look at Bitcoin as a bit of a leading indicator. So if Bitcoin were to have a triple correction as well, or if it were to have a, you know, a completed ABC or a WXY of some sort at these lower targets, then I could see Troll kind of following suit, right? So this long setup's not out of question. It's still quite technically sound, and so I'm gonna keep my eyes on it. I should totally get this out of there. So yeah, ideally I'd love to see a bounce at this trend line. That would be awesome. Or front running it. That would be quite bullish as well. So this scenario is still not out of question, and that just, you know, goes to show that maybe I take 3 stop losses here, right? Maybe I take a stop loss trying to long there. Maybe I take a stop loss trying to long here. And if that happens, you know, you lose 2% of the account, and then you get in this trade right here, and you make 35% off of it. Big whoop. You get how that works? Most people aren't trading with risk management. A lot of times they'll just take, you know, maybe whatever they've got in their Coinbase account. Maybe it's 20% of their net worth or 10% of their investment account, and they just chuck it right into it because they're like, oh, it makes sense, and they do it. And you know, that's a pretty significant loss that statistically fails to produce a positive yield curve, equity curve. Sorry, a positive equity curve. And so I like to risk 1% at all times. And if you know, if I take 2 stop losses on the way down here, assuming it's this triple correction scenario, then I just lose 2% of the account. It's really not much. And then if I get in a winning trade, I win 30%. Or you know, it's an amazing way to play the game. So I do want to talk about profit targets real quick just to end this off. If you're in a long, or if you're looking for a long like myself, then the game plan is as follows. This is the most conservative price target for me personally. I think there's a very good shot this hits, but there are, you know, there could be bear scenarios at play, right? If you were to assume that this was a 1-2 and then this is a 3-4-5 and it's completed here, then what we have is this WXY building up to the downside, and this thing just goes down 90%. It's over. So in assuming that these bearish scenarios exist, because they clearly do, then you have to be very conservative with the way you take profits, or at least, you know, this is how I prefer to play. So if you're already in a long from the bottom here, assuming that this is the most powerful resistance that we have available to us at 618, 786, highly reactive levels, swing highs here. Any sweep of these major, these local highs here will cause a reaction for sure, profit taking. And so might be wise to join with them, because if price were to come down to these lower targets, like I mentioned, then you're going to round trip your profits. So I would take about 30%, maybe more, depending on how much meat you want to leave on the bone. It could be 10% if you want. Take some sort of profits right around this zone. Once you see that price action is stalling and rejecting, or just set a limit order. You know, like taking profits right here is pretty cool, assuming you're in from the bottom right here. Another good idea is to take profits as this high is getting swept. So as price comes up to this high and it sweeps it, that would hedge you against any flat scenarios like this, versus, you know, more bearish scenario where it's, you know, front running the high. That would be the one where you'd be glad that you took profits right here instead. And so the idea is you take a profit, TP1, and then you set the stop loss to break even. And now that lets you sit in a trade with no issues, nice and comfortable. And you can allow the position to just do what it's going to do without worrying too much about, oh, am I going to lose my money that I invested or nothing. So that's kind of the idea, right? By taking this TP1, and ideally it's best to take the first profit target at the most, typically a place where you would take a short, right? The first sign of resistance. And that was right here. So if I was in the trade, I would have took profits probably around right here by now, just because this was a 618 retracement of this, and it had a trending structure confluence. So either way, that was already like a 4R on the way up. So you take a little bit off the top, and that covers your entry, covers how much you put in, and allows you to sit in the trade stress-free as price ranges. You just get to watch and allow price to hit your final target price. So that's how I'm going to play the game. We'll see if I get my entries. I should be able to find something. I should be able to. Either way, I can't be upset. I'm sitting long on Doge. I'm sitting short on XRP. And I already took profits on this one. So whether it comes up or not, or hits my final profit, whatever, the market's going to do what the market's going to do, right? Same thing with ETH. I'm sitting short on it right now. And BTC, same exact thing, sitting short on it. TP1's taking on all of these. So the winners pay for the losers. So let's keep taking shots. Peace.